There's something almost comical about humanity's obsession with finding truth, as though it were some rare treasure buried in the universe, waiting for the worthy to uncover it. We imagine enlightenment as a hidden chamber, a sacred code, or a higher dimension reserved for the few who meditate deeply enough or suffer long enough. Yet the irony is cruel and beautiful at once. The more intensely we search, the further we drift from what's already present. The spiritually awake laugh not because they possess secret knowledge, but because they finally see how absurd the whole pursuit was. The truth is not veiled. It's naked, so close, so constant that the mind overlooks it entirely. Like a fish searching for the ocean or the eye trying to see itself, we are surrounded by the very thing we seek. The ordinary mind complicates everything. It builds ideas about truth, creates maps, doctrines, practices, hierarchies, layers upon layers of symbols, separating it from what is. The tragedy is not that truth is hidden, but that our eyes are covered by meaning, by expectation, by the need to grasp. Every word we use to describe reality adds another veil. The awakened, however, stop reaching. They stop asking what life means and start noticing what life is. They discover that truth was never something to be attained, but something to be perceived directly, in the simplicity of sound, breath, color, motion. And this realization is devastating at first, because it exposes how blind we've been, not because reality concealed itself, but because we insisted on seeing through our thoughts instead of through awareness. The spiritually awake don't stand above the world, they sink into it. They look, and finally, for the first time, they see. Awakening is not a dramatic explosion of cosmic fireworks or the sudden download of divine secrets. It is, rather quietly, the falling away of distortion. The awakened person doesn't see a new world appear before them. The same world remains, but the lens through which it's seen is finally clean. It's not an addition to perception, but the subtraction of noise. The fog that others call vision is simply the mind's endless commentary, labeling, comparing, judging, narrating everything it touches. Awakening begins the moment that commentary loses its authority. The chatter still happens, but it no longer defines reality. What remains is pure seeing, perception without the extra layer of interpretation, awareness, perceiving itself. This is why the ordinary person looks at life as if separated from it by an invisible glass wall, always one step removed, forever the observer, never the living flow itself. The awakened one looks from life, as life, inseparable from what unfolds. They do not stand apart, watching waves crash against the shore. They are the motion of the water, the breeze moving through the moment. Nothing mystical needs to be added, only what was false needs to fall away. When that shift happens, everything familiar remains, but glows with a different quality. A tree is still a tree, a face is still a face, yet everything vibrates with immediacy, no longer dulled by concepts. Awareness reveals that nothing was ever ordinary. It was only our way of seeing that was dull. The awakened person does not escape the world or transcend it. They rediscover it in its raw intimacy. Life, once blurred by thought, becomes startlingly transparent. Every breath, every sound, every movement is recognized as the pulse of existence itself. And for the first time, seeing is not an act of the mind, but of being. Imagine standing before a tree, tall, silent, unmoving in its own slow rhythm of being. The moment you look at it, the mind begins its performance. Oak, leaves, branches, photosynthesis, oxygen, wood, shade. You don't see the tree, you see your concept of it. You replace the raw encounter with a web of knowledge, memory, and language. And in that instant, reality slips away. The living mystery standing before you is reduced to an object, a category, a symbol. The word tree becomes a screen that hides the actual presence, the unspeakable aliveness of what stands there. It's as if we carry a transparent film over our eyes, covered with definitions, and no matter where we look, we see only what we think, never what is. But the spiritually awake see differently. They look without naming, without immediately translating perception into thought. They don't seek meaning. They allow the experience to reveal itself. They notice the flickering dance of light through branches, the soft hum of the wind, the texture of bark holding years in its skin. In their gaze, the tree is not an object to be used or understood. It is a being, vibrating with the same life that animates their own breath. There is no separation between the observer and the observed. Both are movements of the same awareness. To see a tree directly is to see the universe expressing itself in that form. It's to realize that reality is not composed of things but of relationships, of processes endlessly unfolding. The awakened do not analyze the tree. They meet it, presence to presence, silence to silence. And in that meeting, all concepts dissolve, leaving only pure perception, the living pulse of existence revealing itself without words. Humanity has fallen under a subtle and elegant spell, a hypnosis so complete that almost no one notices it. We live surrounded by words, images, and ideas that we mistake for life itself. We speak of love and rarely feel it. We discuss nature and rarely see it. We have built a symbolic universe and moved into it, abandoning the living one for a map that cannot breathe. The modern mind lives in constant translation, filtering every moment through thought, naming, measuring, and judging before allowing it to exist. In doing so, we've mistaken our mental commentary for the world. We no longer taste the fruit, we recite its nutritional content. We no longer feel the rain, we think it's raining. And in this way, the raw mystery of being is flattened into information. This is the tragedy of intelligence without awareness. Our capacity for abstraction, once a gift, has become a cage. We confuse knowledge with wisdom, language with truth, thought with consciousness. We build empires of ideas, then bow to them as if they were divine. The collective trance is not loud or violent. It's quiet, civilized, and efficient. It whispers through advertising, education, religion, social media, politics. It tells us who we are, what to want, how to behave, and we obey, not because we're forced to, but because we've forgotten how to see. To live hypnotized by symbols is to live secondhand, experiencing life through borrowed meaning. The spiritually awake are simply those who have awakened from this dream of representation. They've recognized that no word, no image, no belief can contain the living truth. They have remembered the difference between describing the fire and feeling its warmth, between reading about the ocean and standing waist-deep in its infinite movement. To awaken is to break the spell of substitution and finally return to direct experience, to reality before the word. The awakened mind moves through the same world as everyone else. It walks the same streets, hears the same sounds, touches the same textures, yet everything appears astonishingly new. The difference is invisible from the outside, but internally it is seismic. The commentary that once filled every silence has gone quiet. The stream of judgment, categorization, and comparison no longer clouds perception. Reality no longer needs to be filtered through thought in order to be real. The awakened no longer try to capture life with words, they simply let it unfold. What they once tried to understand, they now allow themselves to feel. The mind, once the noisy interpreter, becomes a still mirror reflecting what is. To most people, such presence seems almost impossible. We've been trained to believe that thinking about life is the same as living it. But the awakened person knows that commentary is not clarity, it's interference. When the inner voice finally dissolves into silence, perception sharpens, the colors deepen, the simplest movement becomes luminous. A leaf falling, a child laughing, the flicker of light across a wall. Everything radiates immediacy. Life stops being a sequence of events and becomes a single unfolding moment. They have not escaped the world. They have escaped the hallucination about the world, the web of concepts that once stood between them and existence. They still feel pain and pleasure, but without the story that multiplies suffering or inflates desire. They respond rather than react. They inhabit the same reality as everyone else, yet they meet it without resistance, without fear. To be awake is not to float above life, but to be rooted so deeply in it that even illusion has no place to hide. It is the simplest, most natural way of seeing reality as it is, without the need to explain it. There comes a moment in deep awareness when something quietly but radically collapses, the assumption of being a separate self. For years, the mind has whispered a constant narration. I am thinking. I am choosing. I am living my life. This voice feels intimate, authoritative, personal. But the awakened begin to notice that this inner commentator is just another appearance within awareness. No more you than a passing cloud belongs to the sky. When you start to watch thoughts as they arise and dissolve, an astonishing realization dawns. If you can observe the thinker, then the thinker cannot be who you are. The sense of I, the owner of experience, turns out to be a mirage produced by memory and language. What remains when the self-image fades is not emptiness but vastness. Awareness doesn't vanish, it expands. The boundaries between inside and outside, self and other, lose their solidity. You breathe, and the air becomes you. You exhale, and you become the air. The supposed line between observer and observed was never real, only a convenience of thought. Existence reveals itself as a single seamless field of consciousness, endlessly taking form and dissolving back into itself. The wave discovers it was never separate from the ocean. This dissolution is not annihilation, it's liberation. The weight of having to be someone drops away. Actions still happen, words are spoken, choices are made, but without the fiction of a controller behind them. Life lives itself effortlessly. The mind may protest, fearing the loss of identity, but what actually disappears is only the illusion of ownership. What remains is the silent witnessing presence that was always there unnoticed behind the noise of personality. You realize you were never the character in the story. You were the screen upon which the story was being played. Once the illusion of separateness fades, perception undergoes a quiet revolution. The world that once seemed divided into me and everything else is seen as one continuous movement, like the sea shaping itself into waves. There was never a wall between you and existence, only the thought of one. The awakened begin to sense the fluid exchange that has always been happening, the body breathing in the world and giving itself back with every exhale, the skin not as a border, but as a membrane through which life endlessly passes. The notion of a fixed identity dissolves, replaced by the recognition that every form is a temporary expression of the same underlying consciousness. The unity revealed is not abstract or poetic, it's direct and undeniable. The trees, the wind, the sound of footsteps, even the stranger's eyes, all pulse with the same aliveness that beats in your chest. The boundaries between inner and outer blur until they collapse. You realize that what you called your life was never personal. It was the universe experiencing itself from this particular angle. Every thought, every emotion, every movement is part of a single rhythm, one endless conversation between form and formlessness. To see this is to wake up from the dream of isolation. Love ceases to be an emotion directed toward another and becomes the natural recognition of shared being. Compassion is no longer a moral duty, but a spontaneous response to seeing oneself in everything. Even conflict and suffering are seen as part of the dance, waves colliding within the same ocean. This unity does not erase individuality. It reveals individuality as expression, not separation. You were never a fragment trying to reunite with the whole. You were always the whole exploring itself through the illusion of fragments. The game of life was never about finding oneness. It was oneness pretending to be lost, just to remember how to see itself again. When perception opens into unity, another revelation quietly emerges, the unmistakable presence of intelligence woven through all things. You notice that life operates with an effortless precision that no human plan could design. Your heart beats, your lungs expand, the earth spins, and galaxies move through infinite space, all without a single command issued by the mind. The same invisible principle that pulls the tides and paints the sunset is the one animating your gestures and thoughts. It has no name and no center, yet it orchestrates everything. The realization is humbling. You were never the manager of existence. You are not breathing. Breathing is happening through you. You are not alive in the universe. You are the universe expressing life in this form. When this understanding ripens, control ceases to feel necessary. You see that the flow of events is not random chaos, but a self-regulating dance of intelligence. The seasons change, the body heals, stars explode and seed new worlds, all spontaneously, without external supervision. What we call nature is not a mechanism, but a mind far vaster than our own, silently conducting creation. The ego's endless attempts to direct and dominate seem suddenly absurd, like a wave trying to manage the ocean. To rest in this recognition is not to become passive. It is to align with what already knows how to move. When you stop resisting, action becomes effortless, guided by the same rhythm that spins atoms and galaxies. Every heartbeat is the universe saying yes to itself. You are not pushing the river forward. You were never outside it. You are the river, flowing, not towards some destination, but as the eternal motion of existence, knowing itself through you. When the illusion of separation dissolves, control loses its meaning. The ego's restless grip begins to soften, and the exhausting effort to orchestrate every outcome fades. You realize that what you called my life was never yours to command. It was life itself, moving as you. The compulsion to manipulate, predict, and secure everything gives way to an unexpected calm. A deep trust in the intelligence that breathes without your permission and spins entire galaxies without consulting you. This is not resignation, but release. Actions still happen, choices still arise, but the tight sense of "I am doing this" disappears. Life begins to move through you, effortlessly, without conflict. Surrender is not defeat, it's intimacy with what is. In letting go of the need to steer the river, you finally feel its current. You sense the rhythm beneath circumstances, the pulse of something vast, guiding even apparent mistakes. The awakened no longer chase control because they've seen that control was never real, only fear disguised as authority. What replaces it is participation, a dance between form and formlessness, self and totality. You are no longer the puppeteer nor the puppet. You are the motion itself, free and unforced. In that surrender, freedom ceases to be an ideal. It becomes the natural state, the quiet joy of being lived by life. There's a moment when the entire structure of time collapses like a dream dissolving at dawn. You see that what you called the past is nothing but memory replaying itself, and what you called the future is imagination projected forward. Both exist only as thoughts appearing now. The mind slices eternity into segments, labeling them yesterday and tomorrow. But awareness knows no such divisions. Everything that has ever happened and ever will happen unfolds in the same eternal present, endlessly renewing itself. The awakened don't live in time. They live as time's disappearance. This realization doesn't erase the clock or the calendar. It changes their meaning. Appointments are kept, plans are made, but the sense of urgency dissolves. Life no longer feels like a race against an invisible deadline. The present is no longer a fleeting point between two voids. It's the vast field in which all movement occurs. Every second opens into infinity. Every breath is the total universe manifesting and vanishing simultaneously. When you see this, time transforms from a chain into a rhythm, not something you're trapped within, but something that dances through you. The eternal is not elsewhere. It's this moment, unnoticed until you stop trying to find it. When the constant narration of the mind fades into the background, something extraordinary yet profoundly simple is revealed. What remains is pure awareness, open, silent, immeasurable. It doesn't arise or vanish. It has always been here, quietly witnessing the parade of thoughts, sensations, and emotions that come and go. For the first time, you notice that beneath all the noise of identity and striving, there is a vast stillness that requires nothing to sustain it. It doesn't try to fix or interpret life. It merely allows it. This silence isn't empty. It's full of presence, a luminous clarity that holds everything without resistance. You realize that you never needed to become peaceful. Peace was what remained when everything unnecessary stopped. The search for awakening collapses, because the one who was searching was made of thought. Awareness was never hidden. It was only obscured by the effort to find it. In this realization, the mind relaxes, and existence becomes profoundly simple. No argument, no conclusion, no philosophy can describe it. It's not an experience that happens to you. It's the seeing that has been happening all along. This silence is not an achievement. It's your original state, the eternal background of every breath, every sound, every heartbeat. From the vantage of this quiet awareness, life sheds its heavy coat and resumes its original form, dance. You still labor, love, stumble, triumph, but you do so with a new lightness because you know you're not only the actor, but the stage itself. The projects you pursue, the masks you wear, the paths you follow, they no longer define you. They are simply movements in a larger choreography. You can weep and you can laugh without hesitation, for neither act threatens the integrity of your being. The same substance underlies the tears, the laughter, the silence. Awareness. In this shift, struggle retains its place, but it ceases to be a battle against yourself. Conflict arises, yet it flows through you rather than being pinned upon you. Triumph happens, yet you're not perched atop your victory. You're riding the wave of what's unfolding. The realization that you and your role are of the same essence loosens attachment and softens fear. You know you are not the separate character scrambling for validation, but the witnessing presence in which the story is told. Existence becomes your theater and your play. This idea of integration does not demand perfection or cessation of action. Instead, it invites participation without clinging. The world remains vivid, urgent, demanding, but you engage with it as the dancer engages with the music, not as a soldier with a mission. You know that you are both the musician and the listener, the performance and the audience. The outer stage and the inner silent space are not different. They are the play of awareness in infinite form. In embracing this, life stops being a series of fragmented events and becomes a whole. You step onto the stage, you dance, you feel the rhythm, and you know you are the dance. There comes a moment when the entire search dissolves into laughter. You realize you were never apart from what you were seeking. The truth you chased through books, teachers, philosophies, and distant ideals has been quietly watching through your own eyes all along. Every attempt to reach it only confirmed the illusion that you were separate from it. When you stop running, when you stop trying to become, reality steps forward, not as a revelation but as recognition. The seeker and the sought were never two. Close your eyes and feel the quiet rhythm of breath moving through you. That pulse isn't yours, it belongs to the same intelligence that moves galaxies and opens flowers. You are not a witness to life, you are life witnessing itself, awareness reflecting in awareness. The hidden truth was never hidden, it was simply overlooked in the noise of becoming someone. When you rest in this realization, there is no enlightenment to attain, no mystery to unveil, no distance left to cross. The universe, through you, remembers itself. What awakens is not a person but existence realizing its own infinite face, finally seen in the mirror of your presence.